Daniel waited until dessert to give my father's manuscript to his mistress. He stood at the head of our anniversary table with one hand resting on Vanessa Shaw's chair and the other holding the mustard-colored binder I had spent 3 months looking for. "Vanessa has finally trusted me to share what she's been working on," he said. "Malcolm, I think you'll agree this is the book people have been waiting for." His mother lifted her champagne. To Vanessa's extraordinary mind. I stayed quiet while Malcolm Reed opened the binder and studied every margin. The corrections were still there in my father's faded green pencil, crowded between sentences Vanessa was claiming as her own. Malcolm traced the familiar fishhook beside the first paragraph, then the double loop below it. He went back and traced both corrections a second time. "Excuse me," he said. Daniel's fingers tightened on Vanessa's chair. Malcolm looked around the table. "Who authored these notes?" Everyone turned toward Vanessa. Malcolm looked at me. 11 weeks earlier, I came home from Cleveland carrying a dead fern and discovered that my office no longer existed. The fern had been alive when the registrar from the Crawford Museum handed it to me. "It hates us," she'd said. "Maybe it'll like New Jersey." It had not liked the airport. I dragged my suitcase through the kitchen at 9:40 on a Thursday night, called Daniel's name, and followed music toward the back of the house. Our dining room had 3 walls of glass, an addition Daniel had designed during the first good year of his architecture practice. In daylight, it looked out over 2 Japanese maples and a narrow brick patio. At night, it reflected the inside of the house so perfectly that you could mistake your own life for something happening behind another window. There were 30 silver chairs in it. A white tablecloth ran almost the length of the room. Buckets of hydrangeas blocked the view of the backyard. 2 women I didn't know were tying sage green ribbons around napkins, while Judith stood in the center, directing them with a butter knife. "Elise!" She sounded delighted, which was how Judith sounded whenever she had been caught doing something she had already decided was reasonable. "You're back early." "I'm back exactly when I said I'd be." The women looked at each other. Judith pointed the butter knife toward my fern. "Is that for the centerpiece?" "It's dead." "Then no." Daniel emerged from the hallway carrying a case of sparkling water. He kissed the air beside my cheek because his arms were full. "How was Cleveland?" "My office is gone." He shifted the case against his chest. "It's not gone." The door was still there, technically. It was open behind him, and through it I could see a chrome garment rack where my desk had been. My framed exhibition posters were stacked face first against the wall. The long oak work table my father had made from an old library door was missing. I set down the fern. Dirt spilled onto the tile. "What did you do?" Judith gave one of the women a reassuring smile, as if I were a smoke detector with a weak battery. "Tomorrow's donor reception is larger than expected. We needed a proper coat room." The Larkin Foundation. You know that. "I knew you were having 12 people for drinks." 38, she said. "Possibly 42, depending on the Halperns." I looked at Daniel. He put the water on the floor. "Mom called Tuesday. The weather report changed, so the patio was out." "The reception wasn't supposed to be here. The restaurant lost its private room. Then the restaurant should find another one." Judith placed the butter knife beside a stack of place cards. "That may be how museums handle patrons, Elise, but relationships require flexibility." One of the ribbon women coughed into her shoulder. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. That gesture had once made me want to protect him. It still did, which annoyed me more than Judith's butter knife. "It's one night," he said. "I moved everything carefully." "You went into my office?" "It's our house." "Did you go through my files?" "No." Judith said, "Nothing was gone through." The slight difference between their answers found a place under my ribs. I stepped into the office. My bookcase remained, though every shelf had been covered by white fabric panels attached with thumbtacks. The closet doors stood open. My father's navy peacoat had been moved from the back hook. I kept it there because the wool still held a faint mixture of cedar and the peppermints he carried loose in his pockets. "Where's the coat?" Daniel pointed downstairs. "Basement rack." "And my table? Garage? My computer? Bedroom? The gray filing cabinet?" A pause. Judith came to the doorway. "All the unattractive pieces are together downstairs. It locks. We didn't open it." I turned to Daniel. "You promised your mother could use my office without asking me." "I didn't promise. I said it would probably be fine." That sounds less accurate, not less bad. The ribbon women had become very interested in napkin symmetry. Daniel lowered his voice. "Can we not do this in front of people?" I almost laughed. Judith had entered my house with a key, removed a room, invited strangers inside, and somehow I was the one doing something in front of people. "Which key did you use?" I asked her. "The emergency key." This wasn't an emergency. A canceled room with 40 confirmed donors is certainly an emergency to the foundation. The key is for a burst pipe, or if one of us is in the hospital. Judith's expression softened. She was good at softening when she intended to make the other person look sharp. "Your father gave me a key to his house within 6 months of our meeting." Daniel stared at the floor. It was an old trick, bringing my father into an argument as though the dead had appointed her their attorney. Judith had met him twice, both times after he was already ill. He had found her exhausting but impressive, the way he found airport bookstores. I picked up the dead fern in my suitcase. "Put my office back tonight." "Elise," Daniel said. "Tonight." Judith inhaled through her nose. "The flowers have already been delivered. They can watch." Upstairs, my computer sat on the bedroom dresser tangled in its cords. A framed photograph of my father leaned against Daniel's sock drawer. In it, Dad was sitting at his kitchen table with a green pencil tucked behind one ear and a page held close to his face. By then he needed reading glasses but hated them. He claimed they made commas look judgmental. I set the photograph upright. Daniel came in 10 minutes later and closed the door behind him. "She shouldn't have used the key," he said. It was close enough to an apology that my body responded before my mind did. My shoulders loosened. "No, she shouldn't have. But you could have given me 5 minutes before you went after her." There it was. I went after her. You know what I mean. I don't. She's been working on this reception for months. The foundation finally has a shot at the Dalloway grant. If tomorrow goes well, they can restore the East Wing. Judith's foundation occupied a former women's club with a leaking ballroom and a list of renovation goals, so ambitious they seemed theological. Then why didn't she call me? She did. I took out my phone. "She sent a message," he amended. There was one from Judith, received while I was presenting final color proofs in a windowless conference room. "Need back rooms tomorrow." Daniel says fine. Safe flight. That isn't asking me. "You were working." "Yes, I do that." "So do I." The words landed strangely. For 6 years, I had done the monthly bookkeeping for Mercer Studio at our kitchen island. I had rewritten fee proposals at midnight, chased late invoices, and spent Sunday mornings explaining why a projected payment was not the same thing as money in the bank. Daniel worked hard. He also worked with the serene confidence of someone who believed administrative labor occurred naturally in his vicinity. I didn't say you didn't. "You made Mom look like she broke into the house. She used an emergency key for a party. It's a fundraiser. Crime with name tags is still crime." That got him. His mouth twitched despite himself. I hated how relieved I felt. He came closer and touched 2 fingers to my wrist. "Let me get through tomorrow. I'll put everything back Saturday morning, exactly where it was. Tonight." "Elise, my father's manuscript is in that filing cabinet." His face changed, though so slightly I noticed it only because I had spent 10 years learning him. His eyebrows didn't rise. His eyes went still. "I thought that was in the manuscript box." "The box is in the cabinet." "Okay, then it's safe." I looked at him. "What?" "You said you didn't open it." I didn't. I've seen the box before. That was true. The mustard-colored binder had sat on my father's kitchen table for most of the final year of his life. After he died, I put it in a gray archival box with his notebooks, correspondence, and 3 unopened packs of the green editing pencils he'd ordered from a stationery company that later went out of business. Daniel had helped me carry the cabinet into the office. He had called it Arthur's Vault. "Please bring it back upstairs," I said. He kissed my forehead. First thing Saturday. It happened Sunday afternoon. By then, the silver chairs were gone, and the glass room smelled faintly of white wine and wet wool. Judith's reception had been successful. The Halperns came after all. Someone pledged enough money to repair 3 windows, though Judith described this as saving the East Wing, and had left 12 miniature crab cakes in our refrigerator as tribute. Daniel spent Saturday at the studio dealing with a client revision. I spent it at the museum correcting captions for an exhibit on 19th century mourning jewelry, because grief apparently needed semicolons. On Sunday, he rolled my oak table in from the garage and reassembled its legs. He replaced the posters, desk lamp, computer, and peacoat. He even brought up the hand-cranked pencil sharpener, holding it by the base. "Where does Arthur's tiny torture device go?" "Left corner." He set it down. A curled shaving still clung to the blade, green paint on one edge, bare cedar on the other. Judith arrived without knocking while I was aligning the table with the window. She no longer had the key. Daniel had asked for it back after the reception, and she had surrendered it with such injured dignity that for one reckless hour I believed the problem was solved. She carried a foil pan of lasagna. "A peace offering," she said. "Is it peaceful lasagna?" "It's vegetarian." "Close enough." Judith laughed. It surprised both of us. She was not cruel every minute. That would have been easier. She remembered that I hated raw onions and removed them from salads. When my father was dying, she sent coffee to the hospice nurses every morning for 2 weeks without telling anyone. She could make generosity feel effortless and intrusion feel generous. She placed the lasagna on my newly restored desk. "Kitchen," I said. "Of course." Daniel appeared behind her and lifted the pan. "I'll put it away." Judith surveyed the room. Exactly as it was. Almost. The filing cabinet stood against the wrong wall. I dragged it back beside the bookcase. Its top drawer stuck halfway, as it always did. You had to lift the handle while turning the key, a motion my father had called persuading the mule. I opened it. Tax records, mortgage papers, museum contracts, the envelope containing Dad's death certificate. The archival box was on the bottom. It felt too light. For a moment, I remained crouched with both hands around it, aware of Judith behind me and Daniel moving dishes in the kitchen. The cardboard lid made a dry whisper as I raised it. My father's notebooks were there. So were his letters, the unopened pencils, and the red bandana he used to wrap around his left hand when arthritis made the joints ache. The mustard-colored binder was gone. I removed everything twice, as if 300 typed pages might be hiding beneath a folded bandana. "What is it?" Judith asked. "The manuscript." "What manuscript?" I looked over my shoulder. "My father's." Daniel came to the doorway, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "It isn't here." He frowned, but not at the box. At me. "You sure you kept it in there?" "Yes." "Maybe you moved it before Cleveland." "I didn't." Judith leaned against the doorframe. There were several boxes downstairs. Perhaps it was mixed in with the tax files. "These are the tax files. I mean the older ones. There aren't older ones." Daniel crouched beside me and began lifting out the same objects I had already checked. He handled the notebooks too casually, by their covers instead of their spines. "Don't," I said. "I'm helping." "Then tell me who opened the cabinet." "No one opened it. The binder didn't leave by itself." He sat back on his heels. "You've taken it out before. Not since Dad died. That can't be right." I stared at him. He shrugged, quick and defensive. I remember seeing it. In the cabinet? Somewhere. When? I don't know, Elise. It's a yellow binder. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Mustard. What? It's mustard-colored. Judith exhaled. This is precisely why I don't keep old papers. Objects acquire so much significance that eventually no one is allowed to touch anything. Daniel shot her a warning look. It was small, but I saw it. So did she. She straightened. I'll check my car. Why would it be in your car? I asked. If it was accidentally packed with foundation material. You said you didn't open the cabinet. I didn't. Then how could it be packed with foundation material? Judith's lips parted. Daniel stood and offered me his hand. We'll find it. I didn't take it. That night, after Judith left and Daniel fell asleep, I searched the basement. I opened every banker's box, every plastic tote, even the carton labeled, "Cords Dead, Maybe," which contained enough obsolete chargers to power the late 20th century. At 1 a.m, I found the first thing Daniel had forgotten. It was in the pocket of his gray overcoat, a receipt from a copy shop near his studio for 312 oversized scans. The order name was Mercer. Beneath it, in smaller print, was the account contact, Vanessa Shaw. I carried the receipt upstairs and placed it on Daniel's nightstand. He was lying on his side, facing away from me. Did you find it? No. He rolled over. The glow from his phone charger cut a blue line across his face. What time is it? Why did you scan 312 pages under Vanessa Shaw's account? For one unguarded second, he was fully awake. Then he squinted at the receipt as though it had been issued by a foreign government. Where did you get that? Your coat. You went through my pockets. I was looking for my father's manuscript. So now you're searching my clothes? You took it. He sat up, dragging both hands over his face. I didn't take it. Then explain the receipt. I had it scanned. That's taking it with an extra step. I was trying to do something nice for you. It was such a poor sentence that I almost admired him for attempting it. At 1 a.m? What does that mean? It means you waited until I was out of town, removed a locked cabinet from my office, scanned a manuscript I never gave you permission to touch, and put everything back except the manuscript. Where is it? He reached for the lamp. In the sudden light, I saw a red crease on his cheek from the pillow. Vanessa knows publishing, he said. She offered to look at it. Vanessa does communications for real estate firms. She's also a writer. Is she? Yes. I sat at the foot of the bed. Since when? What kind of question is that? The ordinary kind. When did the woman I pay as a vendor through your company become an expert on my father? She doesn't have to be an expert on Arthur to know whether the book has potential. Who asked her? He glanced at the receipt again. Daniel. I did. The quiet after that was different. It had a floor. I picked up the receipt and folded it once along the total. He said, You've had those pages boxed up for almost 3 years. They're mine. They're a manuscript, Elise. They were written to be read. You don't get to decide when I'm ready. You were never going to be ready. He said it gently. That was the part that reached me, not because it was true, but because he had practiced believing it. I stood. The original binder. Where is it? I thought it was back in the box. You thought? Vanessa said she'd return it. When? A few weeks ago. You gave her the original. She wanted to compare the scan quality. I looked at him until he looked away. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. She could compare the first page. She wanted to go through all of it. All of my father's manuscript. Yes, and you let her. I didn't think you'd object this much. A laugh came out of me, small and unpleasant. Daniel threw back the blanket. Can we please have this conversation like two people who love each other? I'm trying to figure out which two people you mean. He followed me into the hall, but I locked myself in the guest room. In the morning, he had made coffee and left a note beside the machine. Call me after 10. I'll straighten this out. The note was written on the back of a Mercer Studio invoice I had been trying to get him to send for 9 days. I put it in my bag. The copy shop opened at 8. It occupied half of a narrow storefront between a nail salon and a place that repaired musical instruments. A sleepy man behind the counter wore a purple knit cap and had the careful manner of someone accustomed to strangers arriving with emergencies that were not his. I showed him the receipt. I'm looking for the original document from this order. He entered the number. Picked up. By whom? He rotated the screen away from me. Account holder. Vanessa Shaw? I can't give you customer information. Her name is printed on the receipt. Then you have as much information as I can give you. I took a breath. Was it a mustard-colored binder? He looked at me for a moment, then down at the receipt. 312 pages, he said. Loose sheets when it went out. When it went out? We remove bindings for high-volume scans. My father had punched those pages himself because he mistrusted the alignment on office machines. The holes were slightly uneven. On the last night he worked on the book, his fingers had been too stiff to open the metal rings, so I had done it while he directed me from his chair. Did you throw away the binder? I didn't handle the job. Can you ask who did? The day manager will be in at 11. I gave him my number. He wrote it on a yellow sticky note and attached it to the receipt. At the museum, I spent an hour changing an image caption from morning brooch, with hair to morning brooch, containing woven human hair, because a curator believed the first version made the hair sound incidental. I stared at the sentence until the words separated into shapes. Naya Alvarez, our production coordinator, rolled her chair into my doorway. You look like you're trying to kill that brooch with your mind. I'm losing. Brooches are patient. She held out a sesame bagel wrapped in wax paper. I took it without asking where it came from. Nia believed food required less consent than conversation. You want to tell me? She asked. I didn't. Saying it aloud would turn the missing manuscript into an event that had happened, and I was still attached to the possibility that Daniel would call and explain it back into a misunderstanding. My father's novel is gone. Nia's chair stopped rocking. Gone how? My husband gave it to a consultant who might be a writer. Might be. She says she is. Is that like me saying I'm a dancer because I fell down the subway stairs? Possibly with better branding. Nia came inside and shut the door. I told her about the office, the cabinet, the receipt. I did not tell her that Daniel had said I was never going to be ready. That sentence felt too accurately aimed to share. Do you have another copy? She asked. There's a scan now. That you don't have. No? Did your father email it to you? He wrote on a desktop that sounded like a lawnmower. Most of the book was printed and revised by hand. There are older files on a hard drive, but not the final draft. Anything dated? Notebooks, letters, earlier chapters. Good. I'm not building a legal case. I didn't say you were. You used your evidence voice. I have one voice. You have at least 7. She considered that. True. My phone rang, the copy shop. The day manager said the binder had not been discarded. The pages had been returned loose in a document box supplied by the account holder. Vanessa Shaw had picked them up herself. I thanked him. Daniel still hadn't called. At 11:30, I logged into the Mercer Studio Drive from my work computer. I had set up the folder structure when Daniel hired his first project manager. Proposals, billing, contracts, consultant agreements. His employees treated it like weather, essential, mildly annoying, and created by forces they did not need to understand. Vanessa's folder contained invoices for branding work, press releases, a photographer's shot list, and a subfolder labeled Archive. Inside it was a PDF named Bellwether_source. My hands went cold. The first page was my father's title page, The Last Season at Bellwether Arthur. Bell the scan captured everything, the coffee ring near his name, the cracked reinforcement around the second hole, the shallow dent where he had erased a date. Page 2 held the opening paragraph in his final green pencil revision. In winter, the lake held the sky so perfectly that guests sometimes mistook the reflection for a second world and complained when they could not enter it. I read it twice. When I was 19, my father had driven 6 hours to photograph a hotel he thought might help him describe Bellwether. The place had already been demolished. He came home with 3 rolls of pictures of an empty lot and wrote the lake from memory. A second file sat beneath the scan. The rooms we leave _VS_rewrite. I opened it. Vanessa had changed Bellwether to Lark House. She had changed winter to November and guests to visitors. My father's sentence now read, "By November, the lake reflected the sky with such clean precision that visitors imagined another world below the surface, waiting to receive them." The next sentence was hers. The one after it was his with 2 adjectives removed. Comment bubbles ran down the side. Daniel, stronger, more contemporary. Vanessa's, need to lose the old man rhythm without flattening the atmosphere. Daniel, agreed, you've found the voice. I read that last comment until the letters blurred. Then the screen went white. A message appeared asking me to enter my password again. I did. Incorrect password. I tried the studio administrator credentials. Incorrect. My phone rang. Daniel. "What are you doing in Vanessa's folder?" he asked. No hello, no explanation. "You called her writing a rewrite. You're on a confidential company drive. I built that drive. That doesn't give you permission to open every file on it." Interesting position. Elise, log out. "You already logged me out. You're accessing private creative material from a museum computer. Private material based on the manuscript you took out of my locked cabinet." His breath crackled against the phone. "I told you I would handle this." "You told me you thought she returned it." "She will." "When?" "After she finishes reviewing the pages." "She isn't reviewing them. She's rewriting them." "That's part of reviewing." "No, it isn't. You don't know how development works." "And you do?" "More than you, apparently, because at least I've talked to people instead of preserving the thing like a religious relic." Someone walked past my door, saw my face, and kept moving. I lowered my voice. "You have until tonight to bring every page home." "Or what?" The question hurt because it was practical. I had spent years making threats unnecessary. Daniel and I negotiated, adjusted, absorbed. Even our worst arguments ended with someone loading the dishwasher. I had no prepared consequence big enough for my father's missing book. Or I stopped doing anything for Mercer's studio. Silence. Then he laughed once, as if I had threatened to withhold a decorative pillow. "You're upset." "Yes. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking with impressive clarity. You can't abandon our staff in the middle of a billing cycle. I'm not abandoning anyone. Send me the hours through yesterday and I'll close the month. After that, hire a bookkeeper." "Elise, bring it home." I ended the call. At 4, Daniel's project manager emailed to ask why she could no longer access the cash flow workbook. At 4:10, I discovered my own permissions had been removed from the accounting platform. Daniel had not waited until the end of the billing cycle. I came home after 7. His car was in the driveway, but the kitchen was empty. 2 wine glasses stood beside the sink. One had a pale rose print on the rim. Voices came from the glass dining room. Vanessa sat at our table with my father's loose pages spread around her in careful stacks. She was prettier than her invoice photograph and less polished, barefoot beneath the chair. Her dark hair twisted up with a green pencil. Daniel stood behind her, reading over her shoulder. I stayed in the unlit kitchen. The glass reflected them back at me from 3 directions. Daniel's hand on the table beside hers, Vanessa turning her face toward him, the familiar ease with which he bent down. She took the pencil from her hair. Then she kissed my husband with my father's green corrections open beneath her hand. I stepped into the dining room and switched on the lights. Vanessa jerked away from him. The pencil rolled across the table and dropped between 2 pages. Daniel straightened slowly. "Elise." Don't stop on my account." Vanessa stood, then seemed to reconsider what standing implied and sat again. "He said you were at work." "I was." Daniel came around the table. "Let's go upstairs." "No. This isn't a conversation we should have in front of." "Your girlfriend?" Vanessa looked at him. "You said you were going to tell her." "I was." "When?" I asked. "After she finished improving my father?" "Elise, please." I walked to the table. The pages had been divided into sections and marked with colored tabs. Vanessa had put a glass of wine directly on page 86. A damp ring spread across the upper margin. I lifted the glass. "You need to leave." Vanessa reached for the nearest stack. I put my hand on it first. "The pages stay." "My notes are mixed in. Take your notes." I wrote them on the pages. That was careless. Daniel moved between us. "Nobody's taking anything until everyone calms down." "I am calm." "You're shaking." I looked at my hand. He was right. The pages made a faint, rattling sound beneath it. Vanessa pulled her sweater from the back of the chair. "I didn't know you hadn't agreed to this." "The book or the affair?" Her face tightened. Daniel said, "That's enough." "For which one?" "Elise." Vanessa tucked her feet into her shoes. "Daniel told me Arthur wanted it published." "My father wanted to finish it." "He did finish it." "No, he stopped because he was dying." "I'm sorry," she said, and the sincerity in her voice made me angrier than contempt would have. "I really am, but the manuscript is extraordinary. It deserves a life beyond an archival box." "You sound like Judith." "I don't know Judith." "You'll love her. She gives excellent permission for other people." Daniel gathered the loose pages, tapping their edges into alignment. "Stop touching them," I said. "I'm putting them away." "In my cabinet?" "In a safe place. This is my house. It's my house, too. The manuscript isn't." Vanessa picked up a leather portfolio from the floor. "Daniel, give it to her." He looked at her. All the air in me shifted. "Thank you," I said. "But I need copies of the pages I've revised," she continued, "and we need something in writing about my work." There it was. She had found the exact point where conscience ended and investment began. "You don't have work," I said. "You have edits made to material you knew wasn't yours." I believed I had permission from the wrong person. "Daniel said the estate passed to you and that, as your husband, he was helping manage it." I turned to him. "Manage it." I never used that word. "You absolutely used that word," Vanessa said. He gave her a look I had seen him give contractors who mentioned cost overruns in front of clients. She saw it too. "I'm going home," she said. "With the manuscript?" I asked. "Nobody is leaving with it," Daniel said. Vanessa shoved her notebook into the portfolio. "You two can decide what your marriage owns. When you do, have your attorney contact me." "We don't have an attorney," I said. Daniel's voice hardened. "Elise." Vanessa took the rewritten pages but left my father's stacked in the center of the table. At the door, she turned back. "I didn't steal it from your cabinet." "No, you just kept it after you knew where it came from." She left. I waited until her car pulled away, then reached for the manuscript. Daniel put both hands on top of it. "Move. We need to talk." "We have been talking." "No, you've been issuing orders." "You're sleeping with her." "Yes, one word, no stumble, no excuse attached." The room reflected us from every side. In one wall of glass, he looked as if he were standing behind me. In another, we faced each other across a second table in a second house. "How long?" He pressed his lips together. "How long, Daniel?" "Since March." 5 months. In March, I had stayed up until 2, preparing his proposal for a hotel renovation in Princeton. He had come home with grocery store tulips and thanked me for saving him. Was the hotel project hers? She handled the public presentation. That's not what I asked. "No. Did you take her there?" "Elise, I'm not going to itemize this for you." I almost told him I had been itemizing his life for years. Instead, I slid the pages sideways. He tightened his hands. "Why are you protecting this from me?" I'm protecting it from what you'll do right now." "What do you think I'll do?" "Hide it again. Refuse to let anyone read it. Maybe destroy it because now Vanessa touched it." The accuracy of one fear did not make the rest of his behavior sane, but he used it like a master key. I had imagined burning the pages, only for a second standing in the kitchen. I had pictured green marks curling black at the edges, so none of them could use my father again. Daniel saw something in my face. "That's why," he said. He put the manuscript into Vanessa's empty document box, carried it upstairs, and locked it in his office. I slept in the guest room. At 6, the side door alarm chirped 3 times. Judith entered using the emergency code Daniel had apparently given her after returning the physical key. She found me sitting at the kitchen table with coffee I had forgotten to drink. "What happened to the dining room?" she asked. The pages were gone, but the wine glasses remained. So did Vanessa's lipstick. "Daniel is having an affair." Judith set down her handbag. "With Vanessa Shaw." She pulled out a chair. "Where is he?" "Asleep." "Are you certain?" I watched them kiss. Judith stared toward the hall. Her face seemed to lose structure, then rebuild itself. "I'm sorry," she said. The words were plain. No softening, no strategy. For a moment, I saw the woman who had sent coffee to hospice nurses. Then she added, "But this can still be handled privately." There she was. "Did you find my father's manuscript?" Her gaze dropped to the lipstick glass. "You did." "It was on the bottom shelf when we moved the cabinet." "You told me you didn't open it." "I didn't open the cabinet. It was already open when Daniel and I carried it downstairs." "So you took the binder." "I rescued it from being damaged. Papers were sliding everywhere." "And gave it to Daniel." "He recognized its value. He gave it to Vanessa." Judith folded her hands. "I didn't know that. Would it have mattered? That's unfair. So is having a whole committee redistribute my belongings. Daniel told me Arthur had submitted the book years ago and been rejected. He submitted 3 chapters once. He also told me you refused to discuss it. It wasn't Daniel's discussion. You make everything so absolute." Her voice was quiet now. "Your office, your papers, your father, your decision. Yes, you're married. That word seems to be doing a lot of work for everyone except me." Daniel appeared in the doorway wearing yesterday's shirt. He had heard enough to know which expression to arrange. "Mom, go home." Judith turned toward him. "Is it true?" He didn't answer. She stood and slapped him. It was not dramatic. Her palm caught his jaw awkwardly, making more of a scrape than a crack. Daniel stared at her. Judith stared at her own hand. Then she picked up her handbag and said to me, "We'll talk when everyone is less raw." "I'm changing the code." "You don't need to punish me for his behavior. I'm changing the code because you took my manuscript." She looked at Daniel, waiting for him to intervene. He rubbed his jaw. Judith left through the side door and closed it carefully behind her. By noon, I had called a locksmith. I did not lock Daniel out. I changed the side door cylinder, reset the alarm code, and gave him 1 new key in front of the locksmith. "Don't copy it," I said. The locksmith, a gray-haired woman named Bev, kept her attention on the invoice. Daniel dropped the key on the counter. "You're enjoying this." Bev glanced up. I said, "I'm paying $180 to control who enters my house." "Our house." "Then you can enjoy half." Bev coughed into her fist, but it sounded suspiciously like a laugh. I moved my salary to a new checking account and transferred my half of the monthly household expenses into the joint account. I canceled the automatic payment for Mercer Studios software subscriptions from my personal credit card. Daniel called from work when the rendering platform sent him a warning. "You could have given me notice." "I have, every month for 4 years, beside the charge on the spreadsheet. We have a submission due. Use the company card." It expired. "I told you that in April." He hung up. An hour later, his project manager called me directly. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," she said quickly. "I just need to know whether the vendor schedule you built updates automatically." "No. Of course it doesn't." "I'm sorry. Don't be. Daniel told us you were taking time away because of a family matter." I resigned because he removed my access after I found company files containing my father's stolen manuscript. There was a long silence. "Okay," she said. "That explains some things." I didn't ask which things. Daniel brought the manuscript home 2 days later, but he did not give it to me. I heard the lock turn in his office and saw the document box beneath his arm. "Vanessa has copies," he said. "I know. She's put hundreds of hours into the revision. At your request. She has a meeting with Malcolm Reed. I knew the name, though I couldn't place it. He's interested in her proposal," Daniel continued. "If we pull everything now, she could claim damages. We, you and I. There is no we in what you did." His mouth flattened. "She sent an opening sample before any of this happened. Malcolm liked it. He's agreed to come to our anniversary dinner." I laughed because the alternative was putting my fist through the glass wall. Our anniversary. Mom already planned the dinner. Of course she did. It was supposed to be a surprise. It is. We can still use the meeting to establish Arthur's contribution. We don't have to destroy the opportunity. You want me to sit at my table while your girlfriend pitches my father's book. I want you to think beyond the next 10 minutes. For the first time, I understood the shape of his hope. He did not expect forgiveness. He expected usefulness. Even after the affair, even after the locked cabinet, some part of him believed I would step in, clean up the authorship, protect his studio from scandal, and turn theft into a collaboration everyone could survive. "Leave the dinner as planned," I said. Suspicion crossed his face. "Why?" "Because you already invited him." "Elise." "I won't make a scene." That reassured him, though it shouldn't have. I took my father's notebooks and letters to work the next morning. In the bottom of the archival box, beneath the unopened pencils, I found an envelope bound with a faded rubber band. Malcolm Reed's name appeared on the first letter. 27 years earlier, he had been an editorial assistant at a small Boston magazine where my father sold 2 stories. Their correspondence wandered from deadlines to syntax to a running argument about semicolons. Malcolm's handwritten replies referred to Arthur's fishhooks and double spectacles, the private names they had given as correction marks. I emailed him one sentence. "Arthur Bell was my father. I understand you're coming to my home next Thursday." His answer arrived 9 minutes later. "Elise, Arthur's daughter? I had no idea. I would be honored to speak with you." I did not tell him why. Judith spent the next week trying to make the dinner look as if nothing underneath it had rotted. She hired a caterer, ordered champagne, and texted me photographs of linen samples. I answered none of them. On Thursday afternoon, she arrived carrying flowers and discovered her key no longer worked. I watched through the kitchen window while she tried it twice. When I opened the door, she held the key up between 2 fingers. "You truly changed it." "Yes." She stepped inside only after I moved aside. "Daniel says you're allowing the dinner." "I live here. I'm not allowing anything." "Then what are you doing?" I looked toward the glass room where hired servers were placing Judith's silver chairs around my table. "I'm attending." She wanted more. I gave her nothing. At 7, Malcolm Reed arrived carrying a bottle of red wine and the cautious smile of a man entering a house where he had received 2 very different invitations. Vanessa came 5 minutes later. She wore green and carried the mustard-colored binder Daniel had claimed no longer existed. When dessert was served, Daniel rose and tapped his spoon against his glass. The sound was thinner than he intended. The room was too full of fabric, flowers, and people determined to behave. Daniel smiled anyway. "I know anniversary dinners usually look backward," he said, "but tonight I'd rather celebrate what comes next." His hand settled on the back of Vanessa's chair. Malcolm watched the gesture. So did Judith, though she corrected her expression quickly. Around the table sat 2 of Judith's foundation board members, a developer whose firm had hired Mercer Studio, his wife, and Naya, whom I had invited that afternoon without explanation. She had taken one look at the seating arrangement and said, "I'm assuming this isn't about the chicken." Daniel lifted the mustard-colored binder. "This novel came into Vanessa's life as raw material," he said. "She recognized what it could become. The voice she found is entirely her own." Entirely. Vanessa kept her eyes on her plate. Malcolm looked from the binder to me. "Is this Arthur's book?" Daniel's smile paused. "In part," he said. "Vanessa has transformed it. I'd like to see it." Daniel presented the binder with both hands. Judith raised her glass before Malcolm had even opened it. "To Vanessa," she said. "True genius is seeing possibility where other people see clutter." One of the board members murmured agreement. Nia reached for her water. Malcolm turned the first page. He did not look at Vanessa's polished proposal or the sample pages she had placed beside his plate. He looked at my father's title page, then at the first sheet crowded with green pencil. His thumb stopped near the opening paragraph. He traced the fishhook once, the double loop below it. Then he went back and traced both marks again. "Excuse me," he said. Judith slowly lowered her champagne. "Who authored these notes?" Vanessa inhaled. I said, "Arthur Bell." Malcolm looked at me. "Your father." "Yes? And this is the final manuscript?" "The last version he worked on." Daniel leaned forward. "Arthur created the foundation. Vanessa created the present book." Malcolm turned another page. The fishhook appeared beside a sentence my father had moved from the bottom of the page. On the next sheet, 2 words were circled like lenses, joined at the bridge. Malcolm touched them with one finger. "He called these my spectacles," he said. The room became very quiet. Daniel gave a short laugh. "I'm sorry?" Arthur hated standard proofreader marks, said they looked like instructions for assembling furniture. Malcolm's smile was private and sad. "He sent me stories when I was an editorial assistant. He marked every revision this way." Judith looked at Daniel. He said, "That doesn't change the development work Vanessa did." "No," Malcolm said. "It changes whose work was developed." He closed the binder, keeping one hand on top of it. Vanessa pushed back her chair. "Daniel told me the rights were cleared." "I told you Elise inherited the material," Daniel said. "You said she had given you authority to manage it." I said we manage things together. "Do we?" I asked. He turned toward me. "You know what I mean." "I'd like to." The developer shifted in his chair. His wife folded her napkin and placed it beside her plate with great precision. Judith tried to gather the room back into her hands. "There has clearly been a misunderstanding," she said. "Arthur's work inspired Vanessa, and perhaps the evening should recognize both of them. Discovery is its own kind of gift." "You took it from my office," I said. Her lips tightened. Malcolm looked at her. "You took the manuscript?" "I found it while helping reorganize the room. With an emergency key," I said. "For a party." "Elise, this isn't the time." "It's the exact time." Daniel stood. "Enough." The word hit the glass and came back at us. He looked around the table, remembering too late that these were the people he had invited to witness a triumph. "My wife is grieving," he said. "This manuscript has been emotionally difficult for her. I made a decision to move it forward because I believed the work deserved a chance." "You gave it to the woman you were sleeping with," I said. The developer stared into his wine. One of Judith's board members whispered, "Oh, Daniel." Judith's face went white. "That detail has nothing to do with the authorship." "It has something to do with his editorial judgment," Nia said. I glanced at her. She took a bite of chicken. Daniel looked at Vanessa. "Tell them how much you changed." Vanessa's fingers closed around the stem of her glass. "I rewrote approximately a third," she said. "I drafted transitions where the structure was incomplete. I changed the setting details and compressed 2 characters." "You found the voice," Daniel said. "No." She looked at the binder under Malcolm's hand. The voice was there. His face hardened. "That isn't what you've been saying for 5 months. For 5 months you said Arthur's draft had been abandoned and Elise wanted nothing to do with it. I said she couldn't make a decision. You said that was why you had to make it." He took a step away from the table. as though physical distance might separate him from his own sentences. Vanessa continued, "When Elise confronted us, I asked you to return it. You also asked for a contract, for my pages, not his. You were perfectly comfortable putting your name on the proposal." "Yes," she said. I was. The admission settled more cleanly than an excuse. She looked at me. "I knew by then that you hadn't agreed. I told myself I'd done too much work to walk away. That part is mine." Judith pressed 2 fingers to her temple. "Vanessa, saying things impulsively helps no one. I'm not helping you." Malcolm opened the binder again. "Is there a clean copy of Arthur's final draft?" "The scan is on Daniel's company drive," I said. "I have the notebooks documenting his revisions and earlier digital files. I also have your letters." "My letters? You wrote to him about these marks." Malcolm stared at me, then gave a soft, disbelieving laugh. "He kept those?" "He kept everything except useful eyeglasses." That made Malcolm smile. It also nearly undid me. I took the envelope from the sideboard. Beside it were 3 of my father's notebooks and a printout of the scan's file information. I had not arranged them as a legal display. I had brought them because I wanted Arthur to have something in the room besides stolen pages. Malcolm read the first letter. Daniel remained standing. "This is absurd," he said. "Elise knew exactly why you were coming tonight. If she had concerns, she could have raised them privately." "I raised them in our dining room while you were kissing Vanessa, over page 86. The developer's wife closed her eyes. "You said you wouldn't make a scene." I haven't moved from my chair. Nia put down her fork. Daniel's anger found me fully then. Beneath it was something more revealing than guilt, bewilderment. He had built the evening on the assumption that I would protect him from the consequences of humiliating me. Malcolm slid Arthur's letter back into its envelope. "I won't consider this project under Vanessa's name," he said. Daniel turned to him. "You haven't read her version." I read the sample she submitted. I now know why its strongest passages felt unlike the proposal. "That's an accusation." "It's a provenance problem. My company takes those seriously." "So you're walking away from the book." Malcolm looked at me. "That isn't my decision to make tonight." He pushed the binder across the table, not toward Daniel, toward me. The old rings caught under one page. I opened them carefully, aligned the holes my father had punched, and closed the cover. Judith stared at the flowers. "I believed I was helping," she said. "The sentence was meant for the room, but I answered it. You believed wanting something gave you permission." She looked at me then. Her eyes were wet, which did not make me less angry. It only made the anger harder to hold cleanly. "I thought Arthur would want his work saved." "So did I." I placed both hands on the binder. "But you never asked me what saving it meant." The caterer appeared at the kitchen door carrying a tray of coffee cups. He surveyed the table, retreated, and returned 30 seconds later without the tray. Malcolm asked if he could photograph several pages and the letters. He asked me each time and waited for an answer. I allowed the letters and refused the manuscript. "Fair enough," he said. Vanessa offered to send me every version she had written, along with her emails from Daniel. Daniel laughed bitterly. "There it is." "What?" "Your exit strategy." She met his gaze. "You told me this was your book to give." "I told you it belonged to the family." "I thought you meant your wife." Judith flinched. Vanessa left before coffee. Malcolm stayed long enough to write his personal number on the back of his business card. The foundation guests departed in a cluster with Judith, who paused at the door as if expecting me to restore some piece of her dignity. I opened it for her. She placed the obsolete key on the entry table. After the last car left, Daniel stood alone in the glass room among half-full wine glasses and crushed linen napkins. "You invited Nia," he said. "Yes. You planned this. I prepared for you. You contacted Malcolm behind my back. I told him Arthur was my father. You knew he would recognize the marks. I hoped he might. He looked through the glass toward the dark patio. "You could have warned me." "I did. I asked you to bring the manuscript home. Before tonight. What would you have done?" He did not answer. "You would have removed the marked pages," I said, "or canceled Malcolm, or taught Vanessa how to explain the notes." "That's what you think of me?" "It's what you've done at every turn. You notice the risk, then move it somewhere I can't reach." His expression changed. For a moment, he looked like the man who had sat beside my father's hospice bed and read architecture magazines aloud because neither of them knew how to say goodbye. That man had been real. So was this one. "I loved you," he said. I felt the past tense like a hand closing. "I know. I still do, in a way. That way has been very expensive for me." He slept at the studio that night. 2 days later, he rented a furnished apartment near the train station. Vanessa sent the files. Her emails showed how the theft had expanded one reasonable-sounding step at a time. Daniel first called the manuscript a family draft, then a dormant asset, then material he and I had agreed could be adapted. By the time Vanessa asked for written permission, he told her spouses did not need contracts for every household decision. She had accepted that answer because it benefited her. She said so in the message that accompanied the files. I saved everything and replied with 2 words, "Received. Thank you." Mercer Studio hired a bookkeeping service. The service charged more in 1 month than Daniel had spent on anniversary flowers. He lost the Princeton renovation after submitting a revised fee schedule with the wrong labor rates. The developer from dinner moved a second project to another firm. Daniel kept the studio, fewer clients, and the full cost of the work he had once described as me helping out. Judith rented a hotel ballroom for the foundation's winter reception. The restoration budget absorbed the rental fee, so the East Wing plaster waited another season. She mailed me a letter. Most of it explained what she had intended. Near the end, she wrote, "I see now that Daniel learned from me to treat your reluctance as a delay instead of an answer." I kept that sentence. I recycled the rest. Malcolm waited 3 weeks before calling. "I've read Arthur's earlier stories again," he said. "I would like to read Bellwether, but only if you want me to." The binder sat on my work table. I had opened it every night and closed it after a page or 2. "I don't know yet." "Then I'll ask again later." He did. When I finally sent him the manuscript, I included the notebooks and nothing Vanessa had written. Malcolm's editorial letter was 22 pages long and tactful only in the first paragraph. My father would have liked him. Bellwether had gaps. 1 chapter ended halfway through a scene. 2 transitions existed only as green arrows pointing toward sentences Arthur had never written. I tried to fill them myself and produced careful, lifeless paragraphs. Vanessa's version had solved some of those problems. I hated that. I also knew hatred was a poor editing principle. Through Malcolm, I offered to purchase 14 lines and 2 short transitions from her, credited as additional material on the copyright page. Vanessa accepted. She did not ask to be called a co-author. Her name appeared only beside the words she had actually made. The divorce took 9 months. Mediation divided the equity in the house, the studio's marital value, and the ordinary accumulation of 10 years. Retirement accounts, furniture, 2 cars, a set of knives Judith had given us because she distrusted the ones we chose. I refinanced the house and paid Daniel his share. Keeping it meant a tighter budget and fewer restaurant dinners, but the office window still faced the Japanese maples, and the oak work table fit nowhere else as if it had grown there. The week Arthur's book was published, Malcolm brought me the first finished copy, The Last Season at Bellwether Arthur Bell. The jacket showed a dark lake holding the reflection of a pale winter sky. When I tilted it under the lamp, the reflected hotel appeared before the real one. I placed the book on my father's work table and opened one of the last packs of green pencils. The lacquer was smooth and cool beneath my thumb. The old sharpener complained through the first turn. A curl of green paint and cedar emerged, followed by another, falling into the metal tray. Behind me, the glass dining room had gone dark. The table was clear. Judith's silver chairs were gone. In the reflection, I could see the office, the book, and my own hand resting beside the sharpened pencil. For once, the second world in the glass belonged to me, too.